Hi, welcome to the next channel. So as a part of data visualization and analytics, quite a while ago I shot a video episode on getting data points of established connections like TCP connections via netstat command. The same thing, we can get the output and we can plot it via RRD graph. So after that I was doing some modules as a part of analytics. I need it for my own Toffee project. This is something I need this module not as a part of the module, but I need it as a sort of testing platform. So I was doing a sort of a chart where I need a correlation between Rx of packets and Tx of packets versus bytes. So initially I did Rx of bytes received or the total packets versus bytes. So this is something I can plot it as a single graph. I can extrapolate, but the problem is, as you understand, if you get a one packet with full MTU size, it is going to be count of the packets are going to be just one, and the bytes are going to be around 1500. So this is a huge issue in terms of scaling up between these two values. So you can do certain fixes for the same. You can always add a constant number like 100 or 10 or something like that, and then you can bump up that value so that both can extrapolate. Or the other best option is you can go with dual chart, something what I have done here. So if you see here, this is the chart which I did just a while ago. So you can see here the first chart is all about packets. You can see here it is few packets, m packets per second, which means it is milli, and in that case you need to divide that number by 1000. So it is around 1 packet per every 2 seconds. So it is showing around 0.5 packets per second. So that's how you need to interpret the same. Initially even I was confused. I thought M stands for mega or something. So it is not the case. So M stands for milli. So if you see the bytes transferred, currently there is an issue in the fiber, so entire area internet is not working. So this is the reason it is not much exchanging any data to that real interface. This is my one of the Ethernet interfaces. So it is ENO1. You can see here. So if I do if config, so this is one of my Ethernet interfaces. So since I think the network is still down, google.com, network is still down, so this is the reason it is not much sending any background data. So that case, what is happening is it is just sending any kind of request messages, and it is not getting anything. So this is a sort of background noise, whatever it is doing. So you can see here currently it shows so and so packets, and then the second graph is all about bytes. So these things, as I said before, you can merge it as a single graph, again as a part of data analytics and visualization series. This gives an idea. If you are a network software developer, you need something, a tool like this to do further as a part of your software development, so that you can visualize the incoming data. Just using Wireshark is not sufficient. As I said that day, Wireshark itself has its own applications. You can monitor your TCP connection interaction, and then you can monitor other things, and also you can monitor the packet flow and other stuff, but it has its own limitations. You need tools like this. You need to design tools like this. It is not you need tools like this. You need to design tools like this using platforms like RRD, or even you can use the same MySQL in the combination of PHP, what I discussed before. So it has this scaling stuff. As you can see, there are certain values. Once it is moved, it has scaled up, so it shows now bigger in size. It is just still few packets it is sending to and fro. So if I do a ping to the router, because this is the max I can do at this point of time, because the entire network is down. So if I ping to the router, you will see the graph is going to change. As you can see here, if I leave it for some more time, it's going to change. So you can see here slowly it is bumping up. So if I increase this frequency, minus I 0.5 if it is going to send at much higher rate, so it is going to bump up that graph further. And if I increase the rate even more higher, 0.1, it needs a sudo permission. You cannot do just like that. See, you can see here it reports an error. So in that case you can do sudo and you can do the same. So now it is almost flooding that network interface port or the channel. So you can see here it is going to hike up further. So if you wait for a couple of seconds, you can see here it is shooting up. So this way you can do the same, and you can also optionally I can access my router, and this is my admin password. So if I access the same, again it is going to send some legitimate traffic, because this whatever web content it has to get from this router, it is my Xiaomi router. So as it does, again it is going to get certain packets and corresponding bytes for the same. So you can see still it is going to be few packets per second versus many bytes per second. So this way this is quite useful whenever you do certain networking software, especially if you are working in carrier grade devices and stuff like that. If you are working in some routing protocols, if you are working in some kind of switching and other stuff, or else maybe if you are working in SDN and stuff like that, maybe you may need something like this to visualize what is happening in your network. So if I walk through my code, it is again going to be similar to the previous one. So there are some few subtle changes. In the previous one I mentioned as absolute here because whatever value it gets, as it is supposed to enter into the database, RRD database, versus here it is a derived value, because each time if you do if config, it is going to get this value incremented. So if I do again if config, after some time it is going to increment the packet count here and its corresponding bytes. So this is the reason I mentioned as derived, it's not absolute. So if I go back to the source, you can see here it is derived, it is not absolute. So in that way it does that again automatic. If you do something like MySQL platform, you need to do this manually, because it doesn't have that sort of a platform assistance, versus RRD has lot of such cool features designed within itself. So with that our schema is ready, and in this case we need two data points. So we have bytes and packets, you can see here. So there are two columns or two fields in this database schema, and I have created these two APIs. So you can merge both in the same API, you can do whichever way you want. I just did a copy paste and I created these two APIs versus this earlier video what I discussed. So in this case you have these two APIs. We are plotting packets alone in one API, and the other API we are plotting bytes alone, and we have this create graph API calls. So in that unlike my previous video, I kept the time period just for last 10 minutes. I don't want to get last 30 minutes, I just kept last 10 minutes. You can even change it to last 5 minutes or just last 1 minute. So you can do all those things whichever way you want, and this is my command line script. With that I get that values with that backticks in PHP. I can get the value, so I can just manually, if I run that, you can see there it gets that if config command, and then it picks this line. If you break this down, it is very simple. I am grepping for the line which contains that RX, and then I am again doing a grep. Because it returns two lines, I need a line which contains packets as well. So I do the same, and then I get that specific line, and then I'm removing spaces and replacing with the commas so that we can parse the same. And then I'm using a cut command, and then the fourth field is that packets, and then the sixth field is bytes. So you can do this way, and assume you need to parse it in PHP. You can even parse it in PHP. It is also easy. So I thought let me do it via bash itself, because we have already some bash line. So if you want to parse after the comma, you can even do that in PHP. Even PHP is quite easy to do the same. So I'm doing the same. I'm removing that new line character with the chop command, and with that we have this, we have everything ready. So with this we get that values and we feed it into the database. You can see here we have this packets and bytes, and the packets and bytes, these are the field names, these are the field values, and with that it is fed into the database. And if you go to that web script, unlike my earlier script, it has totally two JavaScript instances, so that it does auto refresh. You can see here my image element A, my image element B, and we have these two instances, JavaScript instances, and then they have been coupled with this image src HTML tags. And before that I did a small modification here. I mentioned that it is actually what is it all about, and also I am displaying the host name so that we know that it is coming out from which system. So with that our entire code is ready. We have this web page, and then we have this PHP to create that stats. And since the database is created, again I have commented the same. So with this, if I execute, I am already executing the same in the backend. Since it's an infinite while loop, it is collecting that data points and it is feeding to this database, and then with which we get this GIF images, and then those GIF images have been displayed using this web page. So you can see here this is what it is happening, and you can do a few things because this is also shows the flexibility of PHP versus something as dumb as C coding. This is something you can also do in C code, but the big issue is it takes a lot of time. It needs at least some entire day of work instead just a couple of few minutes. This took me hardly around 15-20 minutes to do this entire stuff, and it is not a question of taking half a day. It is you may not have guarantee that it may have any bugs here and there, still it may contain or any kind of memory leaks. I'm not saying that anything you do in C it is going to have memory leaks, but C it is itself is a language meant for very deep systems aspects rather than doing something like this. In this case it is good you choose to use some scripting language rather than doing something like C language. So I can do even one thing. I can quickly do something like this, port I can mention, and here I can mention loopback, and this I can make it dynamic. I can even do $port. I'm not sure whether it works or not, because you should understand this is not in double quotes, this is a backtick. So backtick is a very special operation in PHP. It itself means execute that command and get that command output and dump it to those corresponding variables. So if I do this $port, let us see whether it works or not. Let me just stop the same, and if config, you can see here localhost has a much higher count of or lower count of packets but higher count of packet bytes or something like that. So we need to see whether it works or not. So let me just execute the same, and we see if it changes anything as such. So yeah, it looks like it works. So this is the beauty of PHP. You can see here how quickly you can do such changes. Imagine doing something like C, you need to use some sprintf, and then you need to use some percentages and do all those things, and then you execute the system command. This is not something so easy to do in C. So you can see here we are started getting in localhost, and you can even mention here instead of hard-coded ENO1, you can mention as $port, so that the graph name also will change with this. And if I cancel and if I run the same, the graph name over here, you can see here in the GIF image, it also will change. Yeah, you can see here localhost and RX network stats and packets and bytes. But yes, of course, the database also contains the previous values which corresponds to the real physical interface, which of course you can delete and recreate the database. I can just stop this. I can go back here. I can uncomment. the same, and then if I run it once, it is going to create that database. It is going to set that schema, everything, and then it is going to start collecting the data points. I can just run it for a few seconds like this and then stop it, and then go back here. I can just comment, since it is already existing. This is the database file. Since it already created and existing, I can just now run the same. If I refresh, you can see the old data will vanish. So this is how it happens. So with this, it is purely on local host, unlike the earlier case, which is we are using that real physical NIC card. So if you understand, here I am using this getting from the local host. It is getting from the local host Apache server. So each time I refresh this page, essentially it is getting this packets from the local host. So this is what it is. So if I refresh, this HTML page is fed from the local host Apache server to this Firefox browser. So that is why there is a sort of bump in this graph. So even this is in localhost. This entire Toffee website is in localhost. If I refresh and do anything, it is going to bump up even further. You can see there. So it is shooting up those bytes and the packets which is received to that localhost interface. So down the lane, I am going to do a couple of more such sessions, so that it gives that big picture, and people whoever are working in network systems, network software development, you can get some kind of inspiration out from the same. And trust me, it is not a question of whether which tool you use. So don't immediately send a mail that can I get all those source code and stuff like that. Don't waste your time. Instead, just use this as a motivational video and explore yourself. Explore both MySQL platform as well as RRD platform. As I said before, explore Google Charts and then explore RRD as well, and then pick the right one. So that sometimes you need a platform like MySQL and sometimes you need a platform like RRD, and this is something you need to experience, not just picking somewhere and then dumping in your existing networking test platform and trying to integrate some kind of bits and pieces. So don't do that, and don't send a mail asking me to send all the source code. Instead, spend your time and get some thought, learn certain scripting languages, especially like I mentioned, if you are interested, learn PHP itself, because I am not really interested about Python syntax. Somehow it is not something I do like about it. So this is why I don't much like Python. Instead, I choose the PHP because it is very versatile, very powerful. So learn PHP. Other than that, learn a database platform. You don't need to learn all aspects of database. Just learn very basic aspects of a database, how you can dump a value, how you can read the same, and then learn also about how you can retrieve the database information from PHP to the database and database to the PHP and stuff like that. Or in case if you are sticking with your favorite Python, learn about the same, so that you get to know that how you can interact with your database. And then next you can hop on towards these charting platforms, explore the same with your scripting languages. Try to pull that values to this charting platform. Definitely if you use a Google chart, it is a lot more different than what I showed here, because this is something happens offline and it really exports as a couple of GIF images. In this case, this is one GIF image, and if you go back, this is another individual GIF image. But if you use a charting platform, it is going to be live chart generated by JavaScripts. And same case, if you use a platform like Plot and anything, it is also going to be a dynamic chart generated by JavaScript. One advantage with charting platform is you can have that hover over displays and other stuff, which you cannot get it from images. One can understand. If you move the mouse over here, it will show that exact corresponding value. So this is one advantage if you use a charting platform. It shows that dynamically you can hover anywhere and you can get what is its corresponding exact value, sir. You cannot get something like that in this case because this is a very static image. So each has its own pros and cons, which is something you need to experience. You need to get that expertise as the way you explore these things. So thank you very much for watching this video. In case if you have anything to discuss or if you want to share any ideas, be in touch via mail. Thank you. Have a nice day. Bye bye.